Stand on the south bank of the Thames at night and look up. The Shard fills the sky. 309 meters of glass, the tallest building in Western Europe, lit from base to viewing deck. Up to 6,000 people a day pay roughly £30 to ride to the top. Above the viewing deck sit 10 apartments. Asking prices have been reported up to $75 million each. The developer said selling them would take 20 phone calls. Over 13 years later, by every available public record, not one of them has ever been sold. Not one has ever housed a resident. Now look more carefully. The office floors below are alive, lights on, desks visible, more than 30 companies operating across energy, retail, technology, finance. The Shangri-La Hotel is open. The viewing gallery glows. The Shard, by almost every measure, is a working building. It is not abandoned. It is not failed. It is not the kind of half-empty trophy tower you can dismiss as a planning mistake. Except for the very top, floors 53 to 65, 10 residences in the most photographed building in modern Britain. Most nights, that band of the tower is dark. It has been dark in the same specific way since 2012. And that is the strange part. Not that a building failed, that one narrow, ultra-prestigious, mythologically loaded slice of an otherwise successful building has been wrong, in the same direction, for more than 13 years. You do not need a property license to feel that something here doesn't add up. A building this central to London's identity, sitting on top of a major transport hub, attached to a hotel and a tourist destination, leased to 30-plus companies, and yet the most expensive homes inside it have never sold a single unit. Not in the post-crash recovery, not in the property boom, not after the Olympics, not through Brexit, not after the pandemic, not in last year's London market. 13 years of the building's existence, 0 confirmed transactions. That is the case, not the building, the crown. The story usually told about the Shard is one of triumph. After more than a decade of planning and design, the tower reached practical completion in 2012. A £1.4 billion project, more than 900,000 square feet, the tallest building in Western Europe, designed by Renzo Piano. The vision, from developer Irvin Seller, was a vertical city in glass. Offices in the lower and middle floors, restaurants, a luxury hotel, a public viewing gallery, and at the very top, 10 exclusive apartments marketed as the most desirable address in Britain. A complete, stacked ecosystem. Live, work, eat, stay, look out, all in the same building. The numbers behind that vision were not modest. Reported asking prices for the apartments ranged across years and units, from roughly £30 to £50 million in some reports, to around $65 million per apartment in others, to $75 million at the peak of the original launch. These were apartments in a tower 95% owned by the state of Qatar, in a city where Gulf and global money had been flooding into top-end property for decades. Everything about the model said the buyers existed. Then Seller gave the most quoted line in the building's commercial history. He thought selling all 10 apartments would take, in his words, about 20 phone calls. 20 phone calls, 10 apartments, 2 buyers per phone call, on average, would do it. That is not a marketing strategy. That is a public statement of confidence, so total that, in retrospect, you can almost see the trap building inside it. He had spent over a decade fighting for permission, financing and political support to put this tower on the skyline. He had been told for years that the buyers were waiting. He believed them. The phone, more or less, never rang. 5 years passed. In 2017, land registry records, according to reporting at the time, showed no evidence that any of the 10 apartments had been bought. Neither the developers nor any apparent owners were willing to confirm to The Guardian how sales were progressing. Sit with that. 5 years. Long enough to ride out one slow launch. Long enough for 2 or 3 of the original buyer profiles to either commit or move on. Long enough for the market to cycle. And the public registry, the same one that records the sale of every flat in London, simply had nothing to record for these 10 homes. By that point, the question stopped being about timing and started being about something more structural. So the luxury estate agent Henry Pryor said the quiet part out loud, on the record, to the same paper. He wasn't surprised, he said. Rich people, in his words, didn't want to shell out zillions living south of the river. And selling even one apartment at a discount, he added, would crystallize a price, set a public benchmark, that would then drag down every future sale. He suggested this is exactly why developers sometimes sweeten ultra-prime deals with extras like cars and fine wine, to maintain the appearance of full asking price. Read that, and the box closes in around the developer. Cut the price publicly, and you devalue every other apartment in the building. Don't cut the price, and they don't sell. The more time passes, the more expensive the discreet, paper-preserving fix becomes, because there are now more units competing with each other for the few buyers who might actually move. And then there is the geography. The Shard sits in Southwark, south of the Thames. For generations, London's ultra-prime real estate corridor has clustered north of the river: Mayfair, Knightsbridge, Belgravia. That clustering isn't an accident of taste. It's history, status, schools, social ties, and decades of accumulated price benchmarks. The Shard was, deliberately, a civic regeneration story. It was supposed to bring world-class property south of the river, anchored by London Bridge Station, the busiest commuter interchange in central London, and prove that ultra-luxury could live somewhere other than where it had always lived. That was the public narrative, and there is a genuine version of it that works. The offices have moved south, the hotel has moved south, the tourists have moved south. Each of those filled up. What never moved south, in this specific building, are the 10 residents at the top who were supposed to make all of it feel inevitable. You can see the original sin now. The mistake wasn't building the tower. The mistake was assuming that the kind of buyer who pays tens of millions for a home wants that home to be the literal highest, most exposed, most public point of a tourist landmark, on a side of the river that, for generations, ultra-prime money had quietly avoided. The buyers the apartments were aimed at are precisely the people who can buy anywhere in the world, and what they tend to buy is privacy. What the Shard's penthouses offered, at their core, was the opposite: fame. A skyline silhouette so famous that everybody can see exactly which window is yours. You might think a building this exposed must by now have failed all the way through. That is where the story sharpens, because the Shard is not a failed building. By 2023, the office space had returned to near full occupancy, with more than 30 companies operating across the lower and mid floors. The Shangri-La continues to run as a 5-star hotel. The viewing gallery, with up to 6,000 visitors a day at roughly £31 a ticket, generates a steady stream of revenue. The restaurants are open. The tower is, by every commercial measure that doesn't involve those 10 apartments, working. That is the reversal. This is not a story about a building that failed. It is a story about one narrow part of a successful building that has been wrong for over a decade, in total isolation from everything around it. The hotel can succeed south of the river. The offices can succeed south of the river. The tourists can succeed south of the river. The apartments could not. Same tower, same address, same view, different audience. And that audience didn't come. And that's what makes this case strange and unresolved. If the geography were the entire problem, the rest of the building would also struggle. It doesn't. So whatever is keeping these 10 homes empty is not just south of the river. It is something more specific, something about being a private home inside the most public tower in London. Something about being asked to live at the highest point of a building that every day 6,000 strangers ride to the top of just to look around. Privacy and visibility do not coexist easily at this price point, and the Shard's design forces them to share an elevator shaft. So the trap closes from every side. Look at the menu of fixes and see how each one breaks something else. You could cut the asking prices, publicly, sharply. Maybe a single sale at a discount finally clears one apartment, but the luxury market reads that signal instantly. The new price becomes the new ceiling. Every other apartment in the building, and every other comparable address that quietly references the Shard as a benchmark, repositions downward. For a tower 95% owned by the state of Qatar, which has used high-profile London property as part of its long-running diplomatic and prestige strategy, a public discount on the most photographed homes in its portfolio is not just a price cut, it is a status event. The Shard isn't only an asset. It is a statement on the skyline. Statements lose value when they are visibly marked down. You could hold the prices indefinitely. Keep the marketing intact. Wait for the buyer who finally arrives at the asking number. This is, in effect, what has been happening. And for over 13 years, that buyer has not arrived. The longer you hold, the more carrying cost stacks up. Maintenance, service charges, security. The opportunity cost of capital tied up in inventory that produces no income, sitting on potentially the most valuable square footage in the country, generating nothing. You could repurpose. Pivot from for sale to let, which appears to be what eventually happened. Recent reporting from 2025 describes the residences as unlet, language that wasn't being used in 2017 when they were described as for sale. That is itself a quiet admission that the original strategy did not work. And even that pivot, according to mid-2025 trade reporting, hadn't produced tenants. The apartments remain unlet, amid what is described as a severe ultra-prime market contraction, despite their world-famous address and unparalleled views. You could convert, drop the ultra-prime framing entirely, turn the residential floors into serviced apartments, additional hotel suites, or some other product at a more achievable price point. But that decision, made publicly, would effectively be a retirement notice for the original promise. The Shard's apartments were never sold simply as homes. They were sold as the proof that an entirely new luxury market could exist at the top of a regenerated South London tower. Reposition them, and you formally close that proof. You also raise the awkward question of why, in over a decade, nobody was willing to buy that proof at any price the seller would accept. So every door out of the room leads back into it. Hold and stay empty. Cut and devalue. Repurpose and admit defeat. And underneath all of this is an irony you can stand on the pavement and see. Directly below the empty apartments, on floors people pay to access, is the viewing gallery. Up to 6,000 visitors every day, roughly £31 a head. They take the lift up, they look out, they take their photos, they go home. That income stream is steady, scaled, and reliable. Above them, on the floors no public ticket can reach, sit 10 of the most expensive homes in Europe, generating nothing. Two completely different products in the same elevator shaft with diametrically opposite results. One overflowing with paying customers, daily. One generating no measurable transaction at all, for 13 plus years. That is the absurdity to leave the viewer with. The viewing gallery works precisely because it allows thousands of people in. The apartments were supposed to work precisely because they allow no one in. The Shard, at its commercial heart, has proven extremely good at being public. The part of it designed to be private has been, in market terms, ignored. There is one possible exit nobody quite wants to name out loud, which is simply that the entire premise was based on a category of buyer that, in this combination, south of the river, at the top of a tourist landmark, behind glass everybody on the street can identify, does not really exist at scale. If that is true, the apartments are not unsold because of timing or pricing or marketing. They are unsold because the customer profile they were built for was always smaller and rarer than the building's economics required. A real estate agent quoted in the same Guardian piece suggested the Shard could end up being like Centrepoint, the central London tower that, per his reference, stood empty for more than a decade after completion. That comparison is now 13 years deep into being tested. And so far, the test is finding the comparison fair. So step back on the South Bank one more time. Look at the dark band near the top, between the lit office floors and the lit viewing deck. That band is not a ruin. It is not damaged. It is not under maintenance. Every apartment behind that glass is fully built, fully fitted, fully finished. The lights mostly stay off because there is nobody to turn them on. The tower spends every night holding its most expensive promise unanswered. The Shard has succeeded as offices. The Shard has succeeded as a hotel. The Shard has succeeded as a tourist destination. The Shard has not, in any verifiable public sense, succeeded as a home. Building a tower this famous is the achievable part. Convincing the rarest kind of buyer to live publicly at the top of it, in a band of glass everyone in London can point at. That turned out to be a different problem entirely. 13 years in, it remains unsolved. The lifts run, the tourists rise, the lamps come on in the offices, and the most photographed empty apartments in London wait for a phone call that, so far, has been a great deal more than 20.